Hello to all you new listeners out there, and welcome to A World on Fire. I'm Alexa, and I'm here with my co-host, Lauren.
Thanks, Lexa. Good to be back with all of our favorite listeners.
As many of you know, we have not been on the air for a while because of World War II.
Today we will be talking about topics that many of you may not have known about.
Starting us off, we have Elaina, our news correspondent, with some top news on how Hollywood affected the war.
Thanks, Alexa. As Europe was engulfed in war, America stood alone. Franklin Delano Roosevelt wanted to join the war and help free all of the European of Nazi rule and destroy the Nazi Party altogether. The problem that stood against Roosevelt was he could not win over the Congress to declare war. Roosevelt stood alone on the issue, that is until Hollywood got involved. The film industry worked closely with the government and released films that would support the war. Hollywood released movies as a form of propaganda to the United States public in order to promote the war, to unify America, and give the American people a reason to keep calm and carry on. On December 18, 1941, President Roosevelt formally called upon Hollywood to join the war effort, and thus Hollywood entered the war. The main reason Hollywood produced films during the World War II era was to support and sensationalize the war to win over the American people. Before getting involved with the government, the film industry released movies such as Confessions of a Nazi Spy in 1939 that was blatantly obvious anti-Nazi movie. Working closely with the government, a bureau called the Bureau of Motion Pictures was set up to decide if a movie would help promote the war. The films included grim images of Nazi-controlled areas, anti-Japanese propaganda, the sacrifice and suffering of the American soldiers, but in the end, they would all end with victory and glory. The propaganda produced by Hollywood was crucial to the war effort because it promoted and glorified the war. In addition to glorifying the war, the movies produced by Hollywood unified America. Actors and actresses joined the war efforts. The enthusiastic performers set an example for the rest of the American people. Actors such as Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, and Ronald Reagan enlisted, encouraging young men to enlist. Actresses and other actors that were unable to join the armed forces helped the war efforts in other ways. They publicly donated blood to the Red Cross. Actresses such as Rita Hayworth donated the bumpers of their cars and other sources of scrap metal to support the building of tanks, guns, and airplanes. In addition to volunteer services, an organization known as the USO was formed to entertain the soldiers as a way of thanking them for their efforts in the war and give them a sense of happiness in the midst of a grim and miserable time. The USO included actresses that danced with the soldiers, signed autographs, performed skits, and cooked dinners for them. One of the most crucial parts of the Hollywood efforts in supporting the war was to restore hope in the American people. During the World War II era, America was coming out of the Great Depression and did not want to get back into it. Some people who were familiar with the Great War did not wish to get involved in another one. People were afraid that America's fate was grim and that they would be attacked and conquered by Nazis just as other strong European nations had been. The Hollywood industry played an extremely significant role in the war efforts of World War II. The films produced were a form of propaganda used to promote the war. The government and Hollywood joined forces to demonstrate the grimness of the war and the importance that Americans join the war to help their allies, destroy Nazism, and save democracy. The actors and actresses set an example for all American people to join the war efforts in whatever way they could help America and unify the country. Most importantly, Hollywood was able to give the American people hope in a miserable situation. Without the film industry winning over the American people during World War II, who knows what the results would have been.
Thanks, Lena. And now Mary Kate will tell us about Latin America involvement in the war.
Thanks, Lauren. When you think of the Allied powers, America, Britain, and Italy come to mind. But let's not forget about our neighbors to the south. Many Latin American nations had significant influence in World War II. It all started in December of 1941 when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Mexico was one of the first countries to help America, and they cut all ties with the Axis powers. At a conference in Rio de Janeiro of Latin American countries, Latin American foreign ministers, in January of 1942, the Mexican government convinced many other countries to follow suit and break ties with the Axis powers. In May of 1942, Mexico declared war on the Axis alliance. Mexico continued to support America and the Allies during the war. After Mexico declared war on the Axis, many other Latin American countries followed suit. Brazil declared war on Germany in 1942. Germany had attacked them with submarines and killed over 1,000 people. Brazil was pressured into fighting for the Allies and against the Axis. At the beginning of the war, Germany and Italy were the only nations with ongoing flights in and out of Brazil. America created airfields in Brazil with the understanding that they would be given to Brazil after the war was over. They had to wait until their own airfields were created before they could stop allowing these flights to go on. America was not excited about that because it also meant giving the Axis high-octane gasoline. Brazil's navy cruised the South and Central Atlantic Oceans fighting the German U-boats. The largest American airbase outside of America was in Brazil. This gave America a direct route to India, China, and aided them in the North Africa campaign. Brazil sent 25,000 men to fight in Europe. They were the only Latin American country to send men overseas to fight in World War II. The Brazilian fleet fought in Italy with the U.S. Fifth Army for the duration of the war. Brazil also sent 2 air raids to Italy. The Brazilian Navy and Air Force worked together to destroy the German U-boats in South America. After sinking over 10 U-boats, the Brazilian coast became off-limits to the German U-boats. Many other Latin American countries, such as Bolivia, Argentina, and Guatemala, also declared war on the axis of powers and helped greatly in the war efforts.
Wow, so inspiring. Now here's Elaina on strikes during the war.
As you may already know, when the United States entered the war, the leaders of both the American Federation of Labor and the Congress of Industrial Organizations pledged that there would be no strikes or walkouts for the duration of the war. However, at a time when profits were high by any standards, and a great demand for labor meant high wages could be secured and a short stoppage could secure immediate results, the unions renounced the principal method which workers would have gained from the situation. Instead, they took on the function of administrating government decisions affecting the workplace, disciplining the workforce, and keeping up with production. This caused many strikes to appear in the United States. As many of you listening who have siblings, cousins, or grandparents in coal mining, you may already know that the coal mining workers are not getting paid right for the difficult labor they have to do each day. Between 1938 and 1941, about 25,000 workers left mining for the armed forces and other jobs. After losing many men, the coal mining industry had a serious labor shortage. When the government took over control of the coal industry from its owners in 1942, wages and labor shortages reduced even more. In 1943, the coal mining workers finally stood up for themselves and went on strike. After dealing with harsh working conditions and very small wages, the workers were done. There were 514 stoppages in the coal field between September and October of 1944. Most were unofficial, like the 1942 and 1943 Pip Boys strikes, by young miners who were angry at earnings less than old men. At first, the government did not want to give them a raise because it was known that many young miners during the war were bitter about the conditions. In addition, the coal miners often had little respect for older workers and community institutions. However, after many days passing, the miners got what they wanted. The dispute won the miners' minimum wage, leaving the workers happy for now. That is all for today. Thank you for listening.
Here's Mary Kate with the rebroadcast from during the war.
And now we've got a very important announcement from the government to all the women out there. We would like to start off with thanking the American people. We understand that times are tough, just getting out of the Great Depression and diving right into a world war. Many people across the country have been helping out with buying war bonds, modifying clothing choice, giving their recycled products to the war efforts, and cutting back on food and other goods. We would like to encourage those who do not do these things already to begin. And with the war in full swing, we are always looking for more help. The Women's Auxiliary Army Corps is looking for more women to help out. The women in the group take the non-combat positions from men, allowing them to go to the front line to fight. The Army Nurse Corps is also a great way to get involved in the war efforts, helping out the wounded soldiers. Taking these positions would be ideal, but we know that it's not possible for everyone. In that case, we would like to encourage the women of war to find a job. During the Depression, people were desperate for jobs, and now we're desperate for employees. 12 million men and women have been pulled out of the workforce and into the armed forces. We are very thankful for those who are helping out in jobs across the country that have been willing to carry out defense drills, recycle products, and work longer hours. We want to ease the stress they have been dealing with by adding more people to the workforce. women are eligible for any position that men have previously dominated. Currently, women are working as journalists, factory workers, farmers, and even mechanics. We are predicting that women will make up 45% of the workforce next year. Thank you for all your cooperation during this tough time. Together, we will be able to prevail.
Okay, and last but not least, we will hear about the famous Nuremberg trials.
The Nuremberg trials were a series of military trials enforced by the Allied forces of World War II. These trials were conducted to punish those who committed crimes of war from World War II. They were most famous for the prosecution of prominent members of the political, military, and economic leadership of Nazi Germany. The trials were held in the city of Nuremberg, Bavaria, Germany, at the Palace of Justice from 1945 and 1946. The most famous trials and first trial was the trial of major war criminals. They tried the most important leaders of Nazi Germany. There were 23 tried in total. Many of the main leaders had committed suicide before the trials, such as Hitler, Himmler, and Goebbels. The second trial tried less important leaders.
Thank you all for listening and hope you tune in again.